And you are listening to Salam.
So we had this feature called Mosques from Around the World, and we focus on probably one of the most important mosques in the history of the Muslim world, the Masjid An-Nabawi, the Prophet of the Mosque of the Prophet in Medina. My guest is Maulana Abdullah Jinnah. He's a South African who resides in well, what is called Medina Munawwara. So appreciate your time. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum, Maulana Abdullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Chef.
Thank you. You've got this huge privilege of effectively working in that space in Medina. I mean, what a privilege.
The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah has made it possible for us to be in Medina, and we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it possible for our stay in Medina to be beneficial for us, inshallah.
Inshallah. I mean, so let's talk about, I mean, I've made the point, it is one of the most significant mosques in the Muslim world. I'm going to leave it for you to tell us why it's that significant.
I think if we look at Masjid Nabawi, Masjid Nabawi is important in the sense that it was the masjid that was the basis from which the first Muslim community was established. Now, if you look at the seerah of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Meccan period was a difficult period wherein Sahaba was subjected to persecution, and they lived a life wherein they were suppressed, they were oppressed, they were subjugated. And when they then moved to Medina, the opportunity to establish not just a community but a nation, a state for the Muslim Ummah then arose. And the establishment of the state took place at what is now known as Masjid Nabawi. So it was the headquarters from where everything then evolved in terms of the establishment of the Muslim state, and not just the establishment of the Muslim state, but everything that took place thereafter. All of the crucial decisions that took place with regard to the progress of the Muslim Ummah, with regard to the ahkam and the injunctions that took place for Muslims, with regard to absolutely everything that affected the development of Islam, the spread of Islam, the development of the Muslim community, and the development of Islam as the religion with regard to the injunctions. All of that took place in Muslim.
Okay, so that means on the one hand, I mean, the obvious thing, it is a place to pray, which already is significant, right? And the second part is the fact that, if you describe it correctly, that effectively it was the parliament of the city-state of Medina, and therefore hugely significant. So it's far more than just and it was far more than just a place of prayer, right?
And that is what a masjid is. That is what a masjid is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the center of all activity within the Muslim community. The head of the community would maybe not reside there always, but would center himself within that environment, and people would then come to that place and would be able to consult with the head of the community there. The decision that take place would be from there. Everything took place from there. There were occasions of joy and happiness and celebration that took place there. There were occasions of even training for warfare took place in the courtyard of the masjid. There's the incident of where Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says that it was the day of Eid, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood, and so that he could allow me to have a look at the Abyssinians participating in competitions with the spears. And I put my chin upon the shoulder of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and observed them in engaging in this competition in the courtyard of the Masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The disbursement of zakah and charities took place from the courtyard of Masjid Nabawi. Learning and teaching took place from the courtyard of Masjid Nabawi. A residence for those people that had no place to live in was the Ashab al-Sufa in Masjid Nabawi. So everything took place. The rooms of the wives of Rasulullah was adjoining Masjid Nabawi. The Janazah Salah took place from Masjid Nabawi. Everything came back to the Masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
And in fact, it's very much the center of the Muslim world, right? Now, I mean, as you talk, I'm looking at pictures and I'm looking at the dome, that green dome that reflects, below that dome, the burial place of the grave of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So that alone then is the next step. Tell me about from a historical perspective, who's buried there. I mentioned one person, but it's not just the one.
Yeah,
And why is that significant?
yeah, sure. I think before we go into that, I think your mentioning of the dome and the masjid and Medina itself as an important place is important because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Medina and then Masjid Nabawi as the place to which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would come. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Medina as the final resting place of our beloved Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So in the area of the Hujra of our beloved Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the room wherein Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam lay buried, that was the room of Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha, the mother of the Ummah. And in that room is buried our beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Next to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And next to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu is Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And according to some narrations, there is space within that room for Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. When Isa alayhi salatu wasalam comes back onto this earth, he will live and he will pass away and he will be buried within the same hujra, within that same room where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is buried. The room today is not accessible. It hasn't been accessible from hundreds and hundreds of years. The room hasn't been accessible to the general public. So there's different walls. There isn't time in the short interview to go into it, but there are different walls that have been built around the room of our beloved Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There's a square room, and then there's a five-cornered room, and then there's another wall that goes around it, and then there is the greater fence that we see.
That we see on the outside, yeah.
Outside when we go to give the salam to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Okay. What else is there? I mean, let's talk now about the structure right now. So the current usage of Masjid An-Nabawi, besides the obvious one of performing salah and people going to pass on their salams to Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I had the privilege of doing that a few years ago. What else takes place in terms of structure and the activities of the mosque right now?
In the area of the masjid, if you're looking at activities that take place within the masjid, at the moment the activities that take place in the masjid are all centered around ibadat and centered around ta'aleem and education. There is one of the most beautiful and expansive libraries that one can find in terms of Islamic literature in Masjid Nabawi on the western side of Masjid Nabawi. That is accessible to any person that wants to come and study aspects of the deen of Rasul sallallahu alayhi, the deen of Islam. There is also in the masjid, there is also a manuscript library where they have some very, very old manuscripts of books on Islamic issues. In terms of activities that take place in Masjid Nabawi, there are probably 3 different organizations that run Islamic classes in Masjid Nabawi. There is one that has a program where children come in the morning and they do a range of different studies, subjects in terms of ulum al-shar'iyya, they do hadith, they do fiqh, and all of those classes take place in a ma'had, in a school that takes place in Masjid Nabawi. In the second one that takes place is the tahfiz program that takes place in Masjid Nabawi, and you will see that there are tahfiz programs all over. One is run by the Jamia Khairiyya, which is an organization that is not part of the masjid, but their classes exist in Masjid Nabawi. And then there is another hifz and other program that is run under one of the imams, Imam Muhsin al-Khatim, and he has a program for teaching the Quran, recitation of the Quran and hifz of the Quran, where they have on-site classes in Masjid Nabawi, they have online classes, and they amazingly, alhamdulillah, have got classes for people with special needs in the Masjid of our beloved Rasulullah. They have classes for people that are challenged in terms of hearing, challenged in terms of seeing, all of these. So these are some of the different classes that take place, some of the different programs that take place in Masjid Nabawi. There's also the distribution of Quran that take place in Masjid Nabawi. In Ramadan, there is the Atikaf program that takes place in Masjid Nabawi. On every Monday and every Thursday, the people that fast, there are sufras laid down for people to have iftar in Masjid Nabawi. Zamzam is dispersed from Masjid Nabawi. There's clinics that exist in the area of Masjid Nabawi. The funerals that take place from Masjid Nabawi. So at the moment also may not be a political place where political decisions are taken, but in terms of various other religious and social activities are all centered and evolved from within the Masjid of Rasul.
I'm sort of reflecting on the time when you spoke about those classes that take place where people are taught to recite the Quran, and having been there for Hajj about 6 years ago, yes, I didn't realize there's this impromptu getting together of people of different nationalities and therefore different languages, and they taught to recite and reciting a line or two, and the pronunciation is fixed up, and that for me was most memorable, daunting but memorable. So I certainly take that. Perhaps just leaves me with maybe the last thing to ask you, right? When in your role as someone who undertakes tours for people around the Masjid An-Nabawi, right? What if is there one sentence or one image that you can share with us that always leaves people with that lasting feeling? I mean, what comes out of them when they visit Masjid An-Nabawi?
I can't say of one image, but I can tell you that the Masjid Nabawi softens the heart of people. When people come into the area of Masjid Nabawi, through the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their hearts are just softened. And you will find people engaging in ibadah, in turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and coming and presenting themselves to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in amazing ways that one cannot explain. And this is the effect of Masjid Nabawi. That people with the hardest of hearts will sob in seclusion, or sob while sitting all alone in the Masjid of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, turning to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the Masjid of our beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and this is what it brings out in people. We make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring people over and over to Masjid Nabawi, and that Masjid Nabawi be a means of softening the hearts of the people and bringing about changes in each and every one of our lives.
Inshallah. I mean, I think you are right, and we leave it at that. For those that have been already, like myself, fortunately, and wants to aspire to go again, inshallah, may that happen. Those who have never been, remember this: when you at the Masjid An-Nabawi and you at that gated final resting place of the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you've been taught to say this, you will remember this conversation, and it will melt your heart when people say, Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. It is the most powerful image that will leave you, and it will soften your heart and speak to the very ethos of your being and your belief as a Muslim, and the role of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the rahmatul lil alameen, a mercy unto the worlds. Maulana Abdullah Jina, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Shukran. There we are. So much. Inshallah, may you go to Masjid An-Nabawi once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times, again and again. That would be powerful if you can, inshallah, get to that. More to come. We'll talk about a whole range of other issues. We're also going to talk finance as well in a moment.